Tesla's latest release of full self-driving is getting amazing reviews from testers, with many now believing this is the long-awaited answer that will get us a robotaxi. But not so fast. Our guest today, Jeff Lutz, has a number of milestones we should now consider. When can we now forecast, quote, solving FSD, unquote? Will availability expand beyond North America this year? What will be the impact to FSD sales? And most important, when might we now see other automakers calling Tesla for a partnership? So we have Jeff Lutz with us, and he's an ex-chief supply chain executive at top Fortune 500 companies. Welcome so much, Jeff. Appreciate you here.
Yeah, great to be with you, Herbert. It's exciting times.
So one of the things you and I have been discussing quite a bit, and you've been evaluating, is whether or not there's a partnership potential. And with FSD version 12, this is now getting to the point that, clearly not yet 100, there. We're not saying this is going to solve FSD or robotaxi yet, but it's to the point where people start to need to get up and start take notice. So let's report a little bit of what's happened. So over the weekend, we had this news that within the last hour, this was a couple of days, Friday, I think, Tesla deployed full self-driving version 12.3 to thousands of customer vehicles across the United States, including the East Coast. And the response has been incredible. People were very, very excited. Ashok Elaswamy, who's the director of Autopilot, who's in charge of the whole team here from Tesla, he says, motivating to see overwhelmingly positive response for our latest FSD version 12 release. Kudos to the incredible team at Tesla. It's an honor to work with them every day. This is the first version of FSD that uses neural networks end-to-end, going from raw camera videos and vehicle kinematics to producing control actions to drive the vehicle. This is the part that's very interesting. He says this: efforts over the past several months went into making this new approach beat the previous V11 stack, which took years to develop. It just took them, I think, a year to get the version 12 to beat version 11 already. And what's even more interesting, he says, we believe version 12 has net surpassed it now, and hence the next set of 12.x releases should bring unprecedented progress. That was big words. What's your reaction to his comments?
Yeah, we are front seat witness to probably one of the greatest technological product events or launches. Probably you can go back and look at major products over the years, iPhone, other product launches, and this is going to be up there. With one of them. Now, when is the launch date? I think that's something we'll discuss a little bit later in the video. But as hundreds of thousands of testers, thousands of them received it. Hundreds of thousands of them will receive it. This is a very special product. People are, most of the country, most of the world is just not aware that you could sit in a Tesla now, any of the 6 million most recently built Teslas, and press a button to download this software, and it will, using AI, it will navigate streets for you and drive you, and it will encounter new situations and be able to process them and deal with them in an equivalent or better manner than humans would have. And the point you made about the progress and net surpassing and what it was able to do in a year, I believe Tesla had to do V8, V9, V10, V11. They had to go through some of these learnings to figure out that they were reaching local maximums. Number one, number two, acquiring training data. But I believe they actually had to go through some of these learnings to realize and kind of to get to the point where they're at today. But the point at where they're at today, and your question on partnerships, I've seen partnerships form with technology in many different states. I've seen technology form where there wasn't even a physical prototype yet, but there was kind of a 2 and 3D design of a particular product, and there's IP around it, and then boom, a partnership forms. Here you've got everything designed, everything coded. You have network infrastructure up. You've got silicon design running in millions of vehicles, and it's not 6 million prototypes out there running, gathering this data. These are real production vehicles gathering this data, and there are hundreds of thousands of people that are using this software. And now, just the first thousands are getting this end-to-end neural network version. But the point on partnerships is this is I would say it's interesting. Like we're in the first release of V12, but I would say this is a highly mature operation that's running inside of Tesla, and the data that they must have on interventions, and then they can prioritize them in terms of how critical they are, from highest priority to lowest priority, and for them to know in terms of they net past the prior release and the rate of progress. They also probably have data on what kind of progress or rate of progress they'll make, both in squashing bugs and enabling new functionality. It's pretty exciting to see this year, and that's why I asked the question. Is this the year where FSD? They're going to release a production version of this code, but like your smartphone, it's going to continue to be updated with security fixes, with other new features, and it'll improve over time. And could this be the year where it is a relatively bug-free experience that is just very special and unlike anything else out there?
Yeah, we'll go through each of those questions
Yeah.
and the more about partnerships. But let's step back a little bit. A couple of things you said, which is interesting. That you said that you believe that they needed to do version 11 and before, even though they rewrote it to be neural net and to a neural net version 12. That's actually really right, true, because I asked James Dauma himself and a bunch of others, and they all said the same thing, which is, people think that they made a mistake, and that's not the case. All the systems they put in place, all of the ability to track and capture and manage the data, labeling the data, all of those things are still in place, where now they're labeling the data to determine which is good drivers versus not good drivers. And it set the stage for them to be able to do this. And that's why with this neural net, it is progressing so much faster than what they were expecting. And then the other point was the compute constraint. We've already done shows already where we've shown that Elon himself has said that FSD, he doesn't believe is going to be compute constrained by later this year. And we're seeing more of that. So here's your questions. Now that we had version 12.3 come out, and now we're getting a lot of reactions from the people that are testing it. And then these are the questions you want to ask now. So does this mean that, are we more confident in a path for solving FSD this year? Will availability expand beyond North America this year? What impact on vehicle and FSD sales this year? Plan to enable broader FSD awareness. XBump was very slow. And of course, when do we think robotaxi? So let's go through each of these questions. So with the first question, why did you ask this, and what's your thinking about the answer to this, or what were you hoping the conversation starts? More confident in a path for solving FSD this year?
Yeah, and I think the reason I ask this is different regions of the world drive differently, and there's different rule sets and there's different approaches. So in North America, U.S., Canada, even Mexico as well, similar, there's nuances in driving and rules. There's even nuances in the U.S., but in general, if they could solve for a continent and get it to this production worthy, and they should describe what the goal is. It 10 times better than human driving, and better in what vector? I think they should be very clear on what the goals are, because you're going to need to have clarity on that, I think, with regulators as well. Like what's the baseline that's out there today, and are you better, and what problems are you actually solving? But the reason I asked that question is to get that first region up to me is it's not necessarily in serial, but I think it's one of the key predecessors for FSD going wide. And we know that there's testers wide globally, and we know that there's testers that are being added onto the Tesla payroll, and they are testing in other regions around the world. There are cars with FSD enabled, and so that's why I asked that, because I think getting it quote unquote done, but obviously it's never done. It's always going to be evolving and improving, but getting it to a point where it's approved and to run autonomously in the US, I think, or in North America, I think would be a very big milestone.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked that question. It kind of leads into the second question.
Next one.
This
Mhm.
and this and this is important. When I fly to China or when I fly to India, I can't land and walk into the rental car place and just drive out of there. I could if I had a death wish, but I can't just, I don't know the rules. I don't understand the timing. I don't understand the aggressiveness of drivers in that region. But what FSD is going to be able to give you is going to be able to give you superhuman capabilities. So if at some point, I believe you will be able to rent a Tesla. You'll be able to fly to China or India. Maybe not rent, but you'll be able to get into a robo taxi or rent a vehicle. I'm not sure, but you're immediately going to have all the knowledge of the best way to drive in that region, and that's why I think this product, I call it FSD. That's why I think it's so special. It has this superhuman capability of, as soon as I land in that area, I I know how to drive. I know how to. It's almost like the Matrix movie. They plug into the back of his head, and he's like, I can now fly a helicopter, and I think that's just something that's very special. And so I think just the ability of that same vehicle, same hardware and everything, but it'll understand the nuances and it'll understand all the rule sets and everything to be not only just be able to drive in these new regions, but to be a successful and very safe driver in these regions. So that's why I think expansion, beyond the U.S. is very important, and financially, obviously, it would be very important because about a third of the FSD enabled vehicles in the U.S. The other third, the other 2/3 are in Europe, China, and the rest of the world.
Yep. I don't know if you saw, but Bradford Ferguson took the FSD version 12.3 and he went to New York and he reported that it started driving more like a New Yorker there.
Yeah.
That's subjective answers, but that's exciting to see that it will drive differently in different regions. Okay, this third question was a big thing that started to. It's actually a really good question. It's the one that we all need to start thinking about and exploring further, but it caused a little bit of a back and forth debate on X.
Yeah.
So with 12.3 getting much better and everybody, pretty unanimously saying that it's definitely better than 11 and ever before, and it's like they can now see a path forward. What impact would this, let's say it's a very good ADAS, what's it going to impact on vehicle sales? And then this year and onward. And then what's going to happen to FSD sales? Some people are saying, well, even if it's that good, I don't see 10% the uptake going very high. It's just a safety feature. But then there's others going, no, I mean, this is going to be like 50% or higher. What's your, you've been following the debate. Where do you land on this?
Yeah, it's a debate that's starved of real data, and it's some of it uses very bad data. So the only time Tesla reported FSD take rate was in January of 2023, and that was in the Q4 2022 earnings call. And at that time, there were about 1.7 million Teslas on the road between the U.S. and Canada. And remember, Canada doesn't have the subscription. So, and they said there were 400,000 that took the download for full self-driving beta. So that was 23% of people, that use full self-driving beta. And these uptake metrics that I hear globally at 8% or 10%, they don't have FSD beta in Germany, in England, in China. They don't have it. They have autopilot, functions and capability, but they don't have the full turn-by-turn suite, in those countries. So I put those metrics to the side, and I'm honestly looking at like, what is it when people are offered, and this was off of V10, performing software, by the way, too. This wasn't like the greatest performing turn-by-turn software from Tesla. I think V11 really progressed nicely throughout the year in 2023. So just off of basically V10, almost 1 in 4 people that had an FSD enabled Tesla bought it. So question here is, now that you've got something that is completely different, that's AI, you have it's an AI vehicle. I've often thought, like, should Tesla, was going to be one of my questions, should Tesla rebrand vehicles that have downloaded FSD software as Model S AI, Model X AI? It's an interesting branding conversation. It gets more into the next question, but I think the two go together. I think the awareness of it needs to increase, but I think there's a lot of people that bought the subscription, and then they've tried it, and then they've had issues in their area or whatever on V10, V11, and then they just stopped the subscription. I think a lot of those people are going to be curious and they're going to want to restart it. And I also think that Tesla can do some interesting things with pricing. They could, for example, they could give, every new purchase of a vehicle, they could give them a 3-month trial, just give it to everybody. Or they can give it to everybody that just has an FSD enabled vehicle now in an approved region, like in North America, and just say, try it. And I think you'll get a fairly significant uptick in take rate. They can also play with the pricing because it's a very high gross margin, SaaS business. And another thing, and Omar from Mars brought this up. I thought it was a great idea. You could even consider per mile usage and pricing there. It's just like when I enable it, just charge, just like you have my information for every time I supercharge and every kilowatt hour of energy I put in my car, you can charge my credit card. Well, then just charge me every time I use FSD. And that's also a good way for Tesla to understand, usage as well. So I think there's a number of different, angles and opportunity. And I don't think anybody really knows. And that's why I think it's an appropriate debate. I offered that we have that on our space, on Tuesday. And I think it's an appropriate debate because I honestly don't think people know the answer to the question of. I think take rate of FSD beta is going to go up with this release. I think, to me, the question is how much, and then the next question is and it ties in together with the next question on my list, which is around awareness. I think as performance rapidly improves, remember Ashok said that they're going to have these significant jumps in improvement. And they're adding functionality, the summon functionality, the reverse functionality, all those great things. I thought the video with Chuck was excellent this weekend, by the way, Herbert. And I think as all this kind of happens, if they could have a good marketing message around it, and again, in places where there is very low awareness, which I actually think with FSD beta, I think awareness is generally very, very, very minuscule. I think our X bubble is very small. And because I can't tell you how many people have gotten in my car the first time. They have never seen a yoke or a steering wheel turn itself and drive and turn, turn by turn navigation. They've never seen that in a vehicle. And I think the awareness is generally, sub tenths of a percent. So I do think there needs to be a marketing message around it. And up to this point, Tesla really hasn't put a marketing message around, assisted driving. And so I think they can now. I think at some point, if it's a 12.4 or 12.5, these releases are going to be so good that there really needs to be a message around it that, like, to the broader population of, like, these cars do something fundamentally differently than GM or GMC can do, or Ford and Blues Cruise and all these other they do something fundamentally differently that will change your life.
I really like what you were saying earlier, which is true. Which is okay. So they've not given metrics, which we need more metrics. They've not, changed the pricing, kept the pricing fairly high, and so for us to actually have this much uptake at such a beta level, lower level of features, or makes all these mistakes. Now that the tool is getting better and better, that's why I don't think they ever lower the price. Why would you lower the price? Why would you try to market this thing if it wasn't ready? But as it gets ready and it gets more confident and people feel like this is going to be better, they will lower the price. They will try to now increase uptake. They will try to do awareness, and they'll give you metrics. They won't give you metrics until they know the metrics are looking good. So this is great. Now, I don't know if we want to spend too much time on Robotaxi 2025. That's a little bit.
No, it just is it going to be a fast follower is the question, because now with AI, both it just will it be a fast follower? behind is the question. But yeah, I've actually been squirrel.
I see what you're
I
saying.
think there's multiple steps of just
There's too many
getting
steps. Yeah.
FSD and getting it in
Yeah.
full deployment. And I think there's a step between 4 and 5, which I should have put in there, which is, are the partnerships and what
Yeah.
to,
So
and
that's
it's
what
going
I
to
want
get
to
to your
talk
next
about
tweet.
next.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about partnerships. So Alex Voigt said this: any automaker CEOs who don't call Elon this weekend to ask to be the first in line to license FSD are making the biggest mistake of their business lives.
Yeah.
Not that I expect them to, because they've proven emphatically in the past that they're incredibly dumb and have yet to convince me that they're beginning to understand. Elon replied saying, yep. And then he said, BEV manufacturers will sooner or later be forced to license FSD from Tesla and thereby, whether they like it or not, accelerate the advent of sustainable transportation. I mean, you've been saying this for 2 or 3 months, recognizing that these automakers will have to partner because of because your experience. You already know how technology and software is implemented to hardware, and it takes time. You know that, especially you've got lots of partnership experience in your past executive life, and and so you're saying, you're calculating backward. Boy, if I was Ford, I need to act now because it's going to take 3+ years. What's going to happen? With V12 getting this as like a step change improvement, what's your feeling about partnerships?
Yeah. We don't know if they've all, they've definitely seen the videos on V12. The question is all their vehicles, all their Teslas that they have, because GM absolutely have Teslas in their test labs and on their test tracks. Ford has them. They all have them. They all have Teslas. I can almost guarantee you that they have them. And I've gone to some of these. I've seen them myself. They buy them. They update them to the latest, and they want it, and they're testing them. There's teardowns. There's all kinds of activity. When you're in this kind of competitive, multi-trillion-dollar industry, you've got to understand what the competition's doing. You've got to stay on top of it, and you either got to figure out how to beat it or how to work with them. And this is where this comes in. And if I were in their shoe, I totally agree with Alex's note. I would have launched this partnership, last year, maybe even the year before. But certainly after Elon and Ashok did the V12 demo, and then all the other kind of technical presentations that the team have done, I kind of would have done an internal assessment and figure out, this is what you do. Like, can I make this, or do I have to buy it? Make versus buy. Can I make it, or do I have to buy it? And you really got to also look at the burn rate of the solution that you're pursuing and what it does to your company, what it does to your financials. That's what GM is doing with Cruise right now. I mean, the writing has been on the walls for a bit. There's mixed messaging coming out to the media. I don't know where that's coming from, but they've been definitely divesting from that pretty rapidly. Ford divested from their acquisition. I think that was Arco. I got the name off the top of my head, but for Argo, Argo. And so, what are they doing? And so, these partnerships take time. I've seen partnerships form. I've seen technology partnerships form and be developed and launched with far less progress than what Tesla's actually demonstrated, on FSD. It's the earlier you get in, if you're the partner, the better the deal you may get, because there's greater uncertainty the earlier you get into some of these deals. So I'd have to think that the first person to partner with Tesla would probably get one of the better deals involved. And then as FSD beta, and this is what I don't get, like, it's going to rapidly accelerate, as Ashok said, and rapidly improve, and you're just going to be further behind the 8 ball. So I would have to. We don't know. The calls could be coming in this week for all we know, and these type of things happen very, very quickly. So I know on the last earnings call, the question came up to Elon. He's like, "Yep, I'm surprised no one has." He may have already gotten a call, since that call earnings call for all we know, or it could be this week. We don't know, but they move quickly. They can happen very quickly, and what they usually in this situation. This could be very lucrative for Tesla, but also very good for the actual OEM that partners as well, because they'll partner in a number of different vectors. They'll partner on the engineering services to get it designed into, their vehicle. So you're going to need to acquire engineering services from Tesla. It's called non-recurring engineering services, NRE. They'll be paying Tesla millions of dollars to acquire information. They may be buying, process technology or patents, or they may be buying certain tech to do the engineering work to get it into the vehicle. And then, so that's one route. And then the other route, obviously, be licensing the software, would be licensing the network services, would be licensing the training data that Tesla already has. I mean, there's so many different aspects. Then they have the actual hardware that's in the vehicle. Tesla has industry-leading hardware, performance, and cost. The two together, they figured out how to get the client side of the vehicle to not only be super low power, under 100 watts, but a very low cost structure where they could put it into their vehicle and not have some massive impact, to their unit economics. So this partnership piece, I mean, we could do a whole show on this, but I think it's going to become in many forms. It needs to be very lucrative. I think Tesla's going to have to set up this is one of the things reason why I think this comes in a sequence. I think Tesla's priorities are to get FSD beta global and to get it kind of firmed up and stable in North America, but then really get it global. And then these partnerships, I think they're going to start coming in pretty rapidly. I would be shocked if there wasn't one or more partnerships announced and running this year. I'd be shocked.
Me too. The reason is what you said, right? Which is this is not just a supercharger partnership, which is a licensing agreement signed, and then maybe a little bit of needing to plan for a new charging unit 2 years later. This is hardware and software, and so wouldn't Tesla only have maybe first partnership? I'll give you a lot of time and attention, and so then if you're the second or third or fourth, you're going to be in line. You're not going to be I'm not going to handle three of you at the same time, kind of thing, right? So first mover will get the attention. This is getting exciting. I mean, in a number of fronts that we just discussed today, it's not just version 12 is looking like it's going to become the holy grail. Eventually, there's a lot of benefits, sales, cars, FSD revenue going up, this will uptake, partnerships. I think for us stock shareholders, that's the one that's going to make a big deal, way ahead of Robotaxi and others. And so we'll see what happens there. Thank you so much, Jeff. That was fantastic. Appreciated your comments there. Follow Jeff on X at the Jeff Lutz. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.